gather round Halifax.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Nova Scotia Free Speech Bulletin podcast. I would like to welcome Peter MacIsaac, best-selling author. He has a book you might be interested in. He'll tell you a little bit about that after. And Paul Westhaver, he's been involved with Independent Nova Scotia. There's lots going on, and I guess they're going to spill the beans, so to speak, today on the podcast. That's so much fun, isn't it? Welcome, Paul. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Oh, Peter, you're muted, buddy.
Peter, you're muted, my friend.
Oh, okay. I'm going to let Paul do most of the talking here.
Oh, Paul. So can you fill our audience in what's going on since we last talked on the last podcast?
Okay, so we're in court, Supreme Court of Nova Scotia, involved in the judicial review presided over by Justice Shane D. Russell in Port Hawkesbury, and it's judicial review number 538-503. And we started a review. Independent Nova Scotia Initiative Society started a judicial review of the Election Act and the Order in Council to start the election of November 26, 2024. And the basis of the judicial review was that many people who wanted to become candidates were prevented from being candidates because of laws and misapplication of laws by Elections Nova Scotia. That's the basis of the judicial review. So since we filed the judicial review 5 days before the election actually happened, there was early voting, but there was an election on the 26th, but we filed it early. And the reason why we filed it early is because one of the claims that we were making in the judicial review, the justification for the review, was that Premier Houston, through various means, has decided to violate the law, Section 29A, that he imposed in the legislature and had royal assent, so he was bound by it. He violated that fixed election date of July 15th. It was supposed to be July 15th passed, not last November. So we did it early because we want to know if we could get injunctive relief on the election, have it stayed, and then delayed until July 15th. Anyway, more importantly, however, was the fact that as many as 20 people were prevented from participating in the election. And they were prevented because of various parts of the Election Act that had just been amended in a couple of years prior, with Premier Houston involved in that legislative act. So the review involves initially 5 of us. INSI, which is Independent Nova Scotia Initiative, we're advocates of a society advocating for independence to run, and 4 candidates. And those candidates were Jalissa Stewart, Peter MacIsaac, right here, Morgan Guptill, and John Hurley. And we expected them to get on the ballots, and they did not. Subsequently, we had a motion to join parties, which enlarged the complement of applicants to a total of 8 plus. And Jalissa Stewart had declined to continue, so she just abandoned the judicial review. So we had a number of hearings. There's the obvious hearings to just get rid of us and all that, and just arguments just to slow things down and hope we went away. But we're still in there. But there was a watershed moment on September 5th. September 5th, and this is what your public would be interested in hearing about. September 5th, the judge ordered us, me in particular, to make a motion for increased efficiency of the record. he detected that we wanted to do that, though we made no arguments to the court. But he knew darn well that we wanted to increase the record because the government and Elections Nova Scotia was bound to produce the record by that prior to that date, and it was a pittance. You know, it was the same stuff basically that we had in our application for the judicial review, so it was nothing new. But he knew that we knew that there's a whole lot more going on behind the scene, and without too much resistance, the judge said to us, "We're not going to wait for you to produce a request or a motion. I'm going to order you to write one." So that's what we're doing right now. We're actually very busy putting together the orders, the brief, the motion, and the affidavits of everyone to make an argument to the court that there is increased materials, testimony, and records that need to be produced to make the record sufficient so that the judge can make a judgment about whether the laws were managed lawfully and the regulations were appropriate and the intent behind all of this wasn't malicious. And we're making the case that it was malicious. We're making the case that they were doing everything they could to keep independents from being on the ballot. And it was a long-term, drip-by-drip effort in order to have the laws slowly squeeze the ability of independent-minded people from running in the province. So that's kind of the general state of where we're at. We were ordered on the 5th to do that, so we're doing that. And we'll be going back to court in January and then again in February. But we'll be producing these documents and submitting to the court well before Christmas. And we're in the process of finalizing them right now. So what we have for the people of Nova Scotia to know is that we think there was all kinds of shenanigans going on at various levels in the executive branch, inside Elections Nova Scotia, and the shenanigans continue. And Peter, do you want to tell the people of Nova Scotia about their most recent development?
Well, it's not just shenanigans, Tony. A lot of it is what we would call chicanery and skullduggery. And it's now elevated itself to the point of virtual criminality. And so a number of things that happened. And Paul, before I do that, can you go back and explain to the listening audience, when we're asking for the record, what the record means?
Okay, so everybody wants to say what the record is. And what's the record? So a judicial review is a review of the record of what transpired. So what constitutes the record? The record is what's written down, what was stated, the applicable laws, anything to do with the generation of the decision that deprived somebody of something. And the government argues that there's almost no record at all. It was just a matter of perfunctory actions that were done independently, and there's really no record at all. Well, we have quite a different attitude, and we're not going to litigate it right here in this podcast because D. Shane Russell, the justice, will be doing this rather soon. He'll be looking at it, and so I don't want to make a presumption about what his decision is going to be, but we say that the record also is the conversations that happened between the returning officers and these candidates. Because to a person, they were all shocked that these people were denied a position on the ballot, a ballot, by the way, that was already being used because of early voting. So they were denied a position on the ballot, denied the ability to raise funds prior to the election call, and denied the ability to vote for themselves afterwards because of the electronic voting. So they were just denied everything. They had no chance of either voting just for themselves or getting on the ballot as a consequence of a ruling that came out of Elections Nova Scotia in Dartmouth. All of these returning officers did not make the decision themselves. All of these returning officers sent the information to a central authority, and that authority, we believe, is Lee Chow, who is the Chief Financial Officer of Elections Nova Scotia, who, like a dictator, decided that these people have no position being on the ballot. And Dorothy Rice, the commissioner, has a duty to make sure that the elections laws are followed. And one of the attributes of her duties statutorily is to do whatever she needs to do to make things right. She has discretionary powers. And so in each case, she made sure that these independent candidates were not going to get on the ballot no matter what. And a lot of the returning officers vocally disagreed while they were on the phone, while these people were hearing the conversations with Dorothy Rice or Lee Chow. And they were thinking, this isn't right that this is happening, they would say. And it says right here on the form that you should be able to be on the ballot because the criteria for you not running or having to have an auditor, which was the central issue, was that you would have to have raised $5,000, which none of them did, of course. So as far as the returning officers were concerned, they all should have been on the ballot to a returning officer. But every time, the central authority made sure that these people didn't get on the ballot. So there's a big problem when somebody has a financial encumbrance before them so that prevents them from being on a ballot lawfully in this province. And that was, go ahead.
How do we know a judge won't rule in you guys' favor where every level of government's been paid off and bought by the World Economic Forum? How do we know a judge isn't going to rule with us?
Well, if I can continue, Peter, despite that I'm wearing a black turtleneck, I'm not black-pilled. I have great hope that a reasonable judge is going to look at this record and say there was something very seriously wrong with what was done. It was done at the levels of the amendments of the laws that brought us to this point, and despite the opportunities to do otherwise, provide auditors or make the rules more appropriate for the independents, or even the definition of the word independent, that's not even in the legislation. All these things were there so that this would never have been a problem. But I think the judge sees it by virtue of the fact that he's ordered us to make a motion for increased efficiency. I think because of the amount of information that has crossed his desk that's in evidence already, he's starting to see a pattern. And I think the pattern is black and white, to be honest. And that in order for him to make a sound judgment, he's going to need all of the information to and for and against all these arguments. Man, I'm pretty confident that we're in a good position to make that case. It's up to us to make the case, of course, but I'm not that black-pilled, Tony. I think I'm kind of optimistic. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's a good way to be optimistic. Maybe Becky Durham would be interested in helping you guys out where she's an independent. I did invite her to the show, but I haven't had no response yet.
Yeah, well, Peter, if you want to continue, I'll just say that the context of Independent Nova Scotia's participation needs to be understood. We are not a party. I'm not running a party. Peter's not running a party. Mike Zareski is not running a party. This is a think tank, basically. It's an initiative, and we're trying to convince the people of Nova Scotia that they're really not going to get anything out of government unless they get rid of the parties. Because the parties are attached to rich, I mean super rich, monster, offshore financial entities located outside the province that don't have the interests of the people of Nova Scotia at heart at all.
Well, Becky Durham's now an independent. She's not with the party.
No, yeah. Exactly. So, but we're not advocating sort of necessarily a coordination of independence. We're independently advocating independent people run, and we want them to be independent. And I like the idea that she's decided to become an independent so that she can see exactly what's going on, as Elizabeth Smith McCrossan sees as well. So, yeah, we're reaching out to her. I'm sure after the decision, she'll be more interested in having a conversation. I would suspect that she's rather suspicious of us, since we're probably on the meeting minutes docket for every cabinet meeting which she was participating in.
Yeah, she was Minister of Justice, right?
She was Minister of Justice. She took over after Barb Adams was taken out, and Barb Adams took over for Brad Johns. And so there's been a lot of activity inside the Department of Justice this last year.
Wouldn't she still, even with an independent, have to sign disclosures, keeping secrets for Timmy's party? Timmy
Well,
comment?
here's this Peter's idea. Peter, I'm going to talk about Brian Peckford a little. Is that okay?
Go ahead, buddy. Let's give credit where credit's due, bud.
Yeah, so Peter MacIsaac had a conversation with Brian Peckford when we were thinking this thing through. It all started as what if, right? We were thinking this through. How do we do this? And Brian Peckford said, what you do is you get the independents to run, but the way you get independents to run is that you get committees together. You get people in various communities to get together, people that know each other, and say, hey, yeah, we want someone to run that we like, that we love. And so let's go get George or Mary or one of them, we like them, get one of them to run, and because they're going to say, no, we don't want to run. That would suck. We don't want to go in the legislature and deal with all that backbiting and all that weird stuff that happens inside the legislature. And that's exactly the type of person that you want to run, someone who's just like doesn't want to do it. So you convince them to run, and then you pile on with another distasteful layer of control, and that is a performance agreement. You put a performance agreement in front of the candidate and says, here's the deal. We'll support you. We'll do campaigning for you. And this is in Independent Nova Scotia. This is the committee that we would like to see set up. And that's what we're advocating, is that these committees get set up in each district. And they support, go door to door, do the flyers, manage the finances, do all that stuff that committees should do. And in exchange, the candidate is bound to act in the interest of that district. And they would have a series of to-dos. These are the things we want done. The likelihood of all of those things being the same in every district is very low. So it would be a crazy session with 55 people with a unique set of to-dos, which they would be legally obliged to do in support of their districts. And if they don't do that, the district can fire them. And this is the kind of candidate we want. We want candidates that don't want to run, that have to be convinced to run, and will be subject to fire if they don't do what they're told. And it's very easy for a candidate who's in the middle of a debate, between debates, lunch, the debates can go on for several days, to pick up their phone and look at an application on these, modern phones, smartphones, etc., and have real-time polling data about what the people of his own or her own district want. So they'll know. They don't have to speculate. They have direct information. So here we have a committee and the people of each district directly involved in the creation of laws or the destruction or the obsolescence of laws in the legislature and the setting up of various bureaucracies. Direct influence, which is completely cancelable upon the misdeeds of one of these candidates. If they turn out to be bad people, they can be taken out. So that's Brian Peckford's recommendation. And did I represent that good, Peter? Is that okay?
That nails it. That's why we're letting Paul do the talking to him.
I think Paul's doing really good. Well, here's a question. Since you would like to see all the candidates sign this agreement if they run, okay? What about every candidate that wanted to get their name on the ballot? Would they sign it? Would Elizabeth Crossman and Becky Durham, would they also sign this agreement that they will do what we want them to do, or we can fire them? I would be really interested to know if Becky Durham or Elizabeth Crossan would sign that, if they would do it. Because if they wouldn't, it doesn't mean nothing.
Well, if they won't, Tony, why would you vote for them? Run another independent against them willing to sign the contract.
Well,
But
that's what I'm saying, but Peter, it'd still be nice to know where they are on that.
Won't take long to find out.
Listen, we've got like a long-term plan here. After 20 years, likely after I'm dead, it'll just be normal for people to say, "Oh, you didn't do your job as per the agreement, so take off."
Well, that's
And
the
no
way,
one will think that that's weird.
but that's the way it should be. Paul, let's say
100%, Tony.
I moved into your house and you said, Tony, you look after my bills. And I was just blowing money just like crazy, like Timmy Houston, and like we're billions of dollars in debt. Like, people got to start thinking of the province and the country as their house, because it's all our money and we're not outraged. We're not saying nothing. We're just concerned about the Blue Jays. We're not concerned about people dying left and right, genocide. We're not concerned about anything, but we should be. It actually is the people's fault too.
Oh,
That
yeah.
we're not contributing in saying, look, we had enough. Like Tim Houston, we don't want to be $1 billion in debt. They've done so many things to cut revenue, like parking in the hospital. Now, I like it, don't get me wrong. I don't think you should have to park in the hospital, but where's that extra revenue going to go towards our bills?
It's
And
like the bridge tolls in Halifax, Tony. 40 million bucks. It's got to come from somewhere. When you can't,
exactly.
there's still a maintenance budget on the bridge. Who's paying for that now? Somebody down in Cape North now is paying to use a bridge in Halifax they'll probably never be on. It was user pay and it was working. Tim Houston needed those votes to help win himself a seat in the last election, and he made a promise that it just didn't make sense.
But Peter, we're more concerned about Christmas shopping, Christmas. How many
Well,
people will watch this podcast and share it? Like, our country's in trouble. There's bills up in the upper house parliament, Bill C, Bill 8 and Bill 9, all these bills that could censor us, what's happening on the provincial level, what you guys are doing. It could, we could all be in trouble is what I'm saying. I agree with everything they're doing.
Tony, I think that those bills are coming into the House of Commons and the legislatures because of us. I think that, Peter and I and Mike Zareski and John Hurley and the group that's involved in this judicial review, we're typical. We're not aberrations. We're typical of what's happening across the country. There's this general agitation and distrust of government. So those laws are actually a reaction to a groundswell that they're actually, they're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff. This thing that the premier signed, to cancel, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that's laughable.
Well, there's a bill to stop hate speech in Parliament about parts of the Bible. Like, come on.
Oh, listen. This is just a desperate, flailing reptile. The reptile's got bit. It's rolling around on the ground, trying to find some way out. But there's a lot of people now that see the sense of what Peter and I and Mike and John are advocating. I mean, it's kind of simple and not toxic and hardly revolutionary. Oh, we would like the ability to vote for who we want.
Yeah, why not?
Well, what's wrong with that? Good heavens.
What's wrong with being able to give an opinion without being censored? What's the problem when you share something on Facebook or X that
here's the problem, Tony. Tony, Here's the problem. The problem is the people who are funding the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, is so deeply involved in the management of Nova Scotia that even Premier Houston hasn't the discretion to do what he wants. He's actually an errand boy for Xi Jinping. Tim Houston doesn't have his own mind.
So he's just a puppet.
He's a puppet. He's a puppet of the Chinese Communist Party.
So
Look here in Nova Scotia, Tony, when they tacked the fishing tariff on for the lobster season, the Chinese tariff, how many times has Tim Houston come out and publicly gone to battle and said the Chinese need to lift this tariff? Now, personally, I haven't seen him yet. He should still be fighting the good fight and going, okay, this needs to be taken care of. But you can learn a lot about politicians by who, and this is all politicians everywhere, is if you want to find out who's in control, find out who you can't criticize, Tony.
So do you think we're communists yet, Peter?
Not yet, but I would say that it's well laid plan, Tony. One of the things that you had mentioned that, you know, the concern is when this makes it into the court, what's going to happen? And then I get asked this, Tony. I'm at the point now that I just do dozens and dozens of interviews, and everybody asks the same things. Well, why do you do this if you think there's a possibility you can't win? I just read an excellent article today. It says sometimes courage isn't believing you'll win. Sometimes courage is riding anyway. And that came from fighting in the trenches in World War I, when people were told to go over the top. And they knew they were running to their death, but sometimes they actually overtook the opposing trenches. The reality of it is someone somewhere has got to be able to stand up and fight for what's right. This is not about what we want. This is about doing the right thing. And so what you find, Tony, is the more of us that stand up, like me and Paul and all these other people that got involved, the more of us that stand up and like yourself that fight against this stuff, the more someone says, well, you know what? That doesn't sound crazy at all because that's what I think. But I'm told when I think it, I'm not allowed to be thinking it. Well, the second people start criticizing what you think, they're your enemy. It's that simple.
Well,
The enemy is, look at the people who are trying to censor you. That's your enemy.
You know something, Peter? If we don't get our house in order up here in Canada, I can guarantee you and almost bet you the Americans will be crossing the border with their tanks because we are a threat to the United States. We are a threat with a communist China involved in every level of government. So if people don't get off their butts and start doing something, the Americans will make decisions for us. And I know
I think you're right on the money.
I know all them elbows up people don't like Donald Trump. Well,
No. Tony, I wrote an article, it's on my blog, about a month ago. Peter, do you remember that one? I was making a comparison between what's going on here in Canada and what's going on in Venezuela.
Yeah, exact same thing.
It's the same thing. So the Chinese have what, $60 billion in Venezuela right now, right?
At least.
Why would they do that? Why would they care, right?
Well, Tony, look at the amount of Chinese interference in PEI.
I've heard about that.
Well, I did an interview there about a month or so back with the former head of Proceeds of Crime with the RCMP, a guy named Gary Clement. And Paul and I have talked to Gary a number of times. And then I also did an interview with the guy named Michel Janou Katsuya, and he was the head of CSIS for the Asia Pacific Rim. And both of those guys on the interview said the amount of Chinese influence in all political matters here in Canada is off the rails. People have no idea. So ask yourself this, Tony. Here's a question that probably won't get asked anywhere publicly, and you won't see anybody in the press digging into it. But how many Chinese nationals work inside Elections Nova Scotia? How many Chinese nationals work inside the provincial government here in Nova Scotia? Why won't Tim Houston come out and every day condemn the Chinese government for the tariffs that were placed on our lobster industry? Lobster season just opened. It's not doing near as good as it normally did. Why is that? Why is Tim Houston not fighting that? Why is he going to meetings with the Liberal Party and rubbing elbows with so many Liberal people? I mean, we're looking at something that just happened here recently, Tony, in a decision that Sean Fraser made as the Minister of Justice. Now, Sean Fraser rubs elbows and has publicly declared he's good friends with Tim Houston. They're practically neighbors down in Pictou County. And the lead lawyer for the defense, Election Nova Scotia, on our case that are fighting against us on behalf of the province, is named Scott Campbell. And Scott works for Stuart McKelvey, one of the top end firms in Nova Scotia. And so out of the blue, we have all this new information going in that's going to demand that the government provides us with the unredacted records, conversations, emails, everything. We're getting it all, Tony. And they can't withhold any of it. And if they caught doing it, then they're going to risk a contempt of court and jail time. So all this record's going to come out in our case. And we have two charter violations inside this case. So what happens is while this is ongoing and this new data is about to come out of the blue, Sean Fraser pulls Scott Campbell away from the McGilvery law firm and appoints, what is it again? Sorry?
Stuart McKelvey.
Yes, Stuart McKelvey. He gets removed from the case and he's offered a job as a Supreme Court judge, taking the place of Patrick Murray, who was the first Supreme Court justice working on our case, and he retired in the middle of it. And now the province, along with the federal government, has just gone and pulled the chief prosecutor for the province out of the law firm and put him in as a Supreme Court judge to sit on, to be behind the scenes on the case that we started. And Patrick Murray, before he retired, he appointed the new judge on the case. So you're looking at one big circle here, and everywhere we look, Tony, there's so much at stake because everything right now is leading to a massive win here in Nova Scotia. It'll set a precedent that'll affect all provincial governments and all federal government moving forward. And what we want the people of Nova Scotia to understand was the goal was not to have all 55 independent candidates win in Nova Scotia. The goal was to get enough independents to win that in a close government or a minority government, that they would control the balance of power, much like the NDP had done. Imagine right now, Tony, if there were 10 federal independents, they would control the balance of power at the federal level of government, and they would not be able to do any of the things they're doing to us now without the support of all.
So is there a plan for federal independents to run?
Well, the plan is this, Tony. When we win our case, that's going to set a precedent in law that all of the barriers for independents to run are going to be removed. Most people don't know this, Tony. Paul brought it up. If you want to run as an independent in Nova Scotia, you can't issue receipts. You can't gather up donations prior to the writ being dropped, which is normally 31 or 30, between 35 days before an election day. So you can't start gathering up money prior to that because you're not allowed to issue receipts. You're not allowed to form an electoral district association. If you raise, for example, Tony, as an independent in that 30 days running your campaign, if you were to raise $50,000 and only spent $10,000, at the end of the campaign, the province swoops in and takes that $40,000 from you. They just take it. You're not allowed to put it in a war chest for your next campaign. So inside the Election Act, there's legislation that, under Section 3 of the Charter, it's very specific.
No, not Section 3, Peter. There's 3 items.
Oh, there's 3 items.
There's 3 items that the commissioner is obligated to adhere to.
Yeah, and
one of them is fairness.
Yeah, so right off the bat, nobody as an independent is treated fairly by the government. I'll give you an example. Elizabeth Smith McCrossan, since being voted in, Tim Houston has told her to her face, you will never be on a committee. She's applied for every committee, Tony, and because she's an independent, Houston has steadfastly saying, no, I'm going to prejudice you and you're not allowed on a committee. And we're going to try to make an example out of you. So people need to realize we were on track with a set election date to potentially have a full slate of independents running, all tied down, Tony, with contracts with their local community that said for the first time in Canadian history, you're going to be able to fire an idiot. If a person turns out to be an idiot who doesn't do what they told and they lied and they're in there, for example, Chris D'Entremont wouldn't be allowed to cross the floor. As soon as he did, you fire him. You could put terms in there so he couldn't even take his pension.
But isn't that what Becky Durham did too? People voted her for a conservative and she walked across the floor. Now, I'm for independence, but she
Exactly,
she
Tony.
was a conservative and she crossed as an independent.
Okay,
Right, but
well,
she
listen,
crossed.
Tony, this is the whole point. We're not in a hurry. We're not in a hurry to do this. We want the people of Nova Scotia who voted, for instance, voted for Becky to be affronted, to be insulted at the prospects of Premier Houston not engaging with her and putting her in positions of influence in the government. Because it really isn't punishment of Becky. It's the punishment of the people of Nova Scotia who voted for Becky. See,
Yeah.
you got it all wrong. It's the people who should bear the responsibility and the credit for governance. It doesn't stop with Becky. Becky can go back to her district and say, listen, I'm representing you, and Premier Houston did this to me, so therefore he did that to you. And that's what's going on. And with independence in place, with a contract with the people of their various districts, then you have the people naturally involved in government. And people of Nova Scotia need to learn to participate in government or learn to be enslaved by it. It's one or the other. Either you get involved with government or you become enslaved by the psychopaths who stomp on you to become rulers.
Well, they're working on all that now with digital ID and everything to enslave us.
Yeah.
And a lot of these bills, I had John Carpe on with me, a lawyer, and he said by Christmas, if these bills pass, we'll be a communist country.
Well,
Tony, I did an interview with John Carpe over that very thing 2 weeks ago, and then I saw you do an interview with him. And John's dead right. And people have to look at what Tim Houston did here in Nova Scotia and realize that none of us have privacy for our medical information anymore. As a matter of fact, I was told just the other day that there are people in Antigonish working on cataloging some of our digital data with no medical experience of any kind, and they've got access to everybody's private medical data here in Nova Scotia because Tim Houston changed the rule that anybody that he appoints, that could be anybody, it has full access to your entire medical record. All the stuff you've over your lifetime told your doctor for one reason or another that was supposed to be sacred. Not only do they have access, Tony, the Auditor General for Nova Scotia had come out and said none of the data is secure. The government categorically cannot secure digital data.
Here's why. Here's why. Okay, Peter, if you don't mind.
I'll go ahead.
There's a provision in the law that says anybody who is designated as a custodian can see it. And that can be a foreign entity, that can be anybody. So all they have to do is be designated as a custodian of your data. And that could be a giant corporation. It could be Xi Jinping himself. So it's not secure. Even the way the law is written right now, you've already given it up. And people are walking around with these cell phones. You know, I have this conversation all the time. And this is a little soapbox of mine. Here's my cell phone. You have to do time travel to get something like that. But it doesn't have data. It doesn't do anything. It's a cell phone. It's just a phone. And why do I do that? Because I'm really not interested in having a device as a proxy for my identity, which is what they are. And everybody likes their TikTok. Everybody wants to be on Telegram and Signal and Facebook and chit-chatting about what they had for lunch, right? Meanwhile, all that data is being circulated, and that's the vehicle, that is the mechanism, that is a platform on which the digital ID is going to be installed, your digital currency, all those things that will enslave you. And that's your fault. You got to have that toy. You got to have it. You can't live without it. It tells you where you are on the street, for goodness sake. It can do Google Maps. Oh my goodness.
I had a horrible problem with my cell phone, Paul. I couldn't text anybody because I couldn't connect to Google Chat RCS, and I couldn't I went through Bell and they said, wasn't their fault, it was Google. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
couldn't text anybody. So I said, well, if I turn our CS chat off, I should still be able to text. No, it was Google's fault. Anyway, long story short, I left and went with Eastlink, and I could text with our CS off. And I said, well, why could I do it with them and not with Bell? Anyway, these phones are a racket, Paul. It's like, anyway,
Yeah. It was a
I can
very
text
seductive
now.
thing they did.
I can't use our CS now. It won't connect me. I got mad and turned it off. It's like I'm just wondering if is that all part of this digital ID, this stuff that's going on? You know, you should be able to just connect to it.
Yeah. Well,
Some
most of what I do, Tony, is development of intellectual property. So I'm not interested in conveying any of that information on any platform to anybody anytime anyway. So I kind of had to get out of the habit of spreading information around a long time ago. I had a patent stolen from me as it was being written because one of my colleagues decided to Google it before it was filed with the U.S. Patent Office. So I learned back then that it doesn't do me or my clients any benefit for me to be sharing the information with a corporation that's principal function is to create intellectual property, and that is Google. So I don't share anything with Google if I can avoid it. You can't avoid it. I'm on a computer, and they're into everything, so you can't avoid it entirely, but I do limit it as much as possible.
The problem is if you don't use Facebook and X and these, you don't get the message out where we're in trouble with communist China. That's the drawback. A lot of
Well,
people.
you're our prostitute.
I guess you could call it that.
That's right. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on, sorry folks, I don't do Facebook. I have a web page that I manage myself. It's westhaver.ca, but an independent ns.net has one. But we deliberately come to see you because you have given up your privacy for us. So
Oh yeah, they know everything. I'm on Facebook Protect. It's to protect me because I reach out to so many people. They want to protect me. Isn't that nice of Facebook? And X, they love to take my money, but I don't get near the views up there at all. I said it's just wild. And some posts I had on my Facebook group here just lately just took off. It's like my podcasts don't, and some of them 25,000 views. And I just don't figure out this computer stuff. But I mean, Paul knows all this stuff, don't you think?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do, Peter, and we do it on this intentional thing, is we decentralize everything.
Yeah.
I don't have it all. Peter doesn't have it all. No one has it all. We all have some, but we all have the ability to replicate each other's behavior. So we just get the word out organically.
So Tony, that's the reason why I wrote that book, right? I was in the same boat that you were in. I was being censored heavily, and I could see what was coming with this new legislation, realizing that you and myself and anybody else and Paul, any of us that openly speak out and are critical of a tyrannical government, that you're going to be a target. So when I put out that book, it's not just the Redneck Conservative. The book's called The Redneck Conservative, How Conservatives Are Made. But the book doesn't tell the story because I don't support any parties. I don't support the Conservative Party or any party. And the reason why we do that is because Paul and I and thousands of other people across Nova Scotia and across, hundreds of thousands across Canada realize that the party system's broken. So in that book, it's not just a biography on some redneck like myself who grew up down in Cape Breton and went on to be a game warden and a professional forest firefighter and the rest of that stuff and get involved in politics. And I was naive enough, Tony, to think I could make a difference, right? Like, I mean, I've been fishing with Tim Houston, and I can tell you when you're dealing with these guys that they have no remorse about trampling whoever they have to get things done. And so what happens is, because there's no way to fire them, once they lie to you and you get in power, you're stuck with them legally in Canada for the next 4 years. Legally, there's a case in Canada that says precedent that says they are not obligated to tell you the truth or do anything that they promise you. And that's why the government is bending over backwards now at the federal level, interfering with that new Supreme Court judge appointment, pulling him off our case, and the provincial government are threatened by what we're doing. Because this will take off, we will set a precedent, we will win the case. Tim Houston will very likely have to step down as a result of it, Tony. And then there's going to be a vacuum, and I'm not sure who's going to fill it. But people need to realize just how serious this is, because right now it's looking like we have the evidence to prove malicious intent and full abuse of power. And everything seems, nothing was done by accident, Tony. This is all coordinated.
Oh, Peter's right. Who made the law that the election date was to be fixed on July 15th, 2025 for the next election?
Can I take a guess?
Yeah.
Tim Houston? Was
Tim
it
Houston?
First piece of legislation, gentlemen, and he fought tooth and nail for it.
Who in the province had the ability and the authority and the motivation to not have it on that date?
Tim Houston?
100%.
I'm confused.
Exactly. Who had the obligation to obey the election law?
Tim Houston.
And Dorothy Rice.
Do I get a prize?
And Dorothy Rice. So Dorothy Rice's job is to obey that law and to make sure the law is adhered to. And Section 29A said the election's going to be on the 15th.
But Paul, they're doing whatever they want. They're doing whatever they want.
Well, this is why we're having a judicial review. We're going to, Tony, when you say they do what they want, I want to know who they are. I want to know who actually made the decision that that law wasn't going to be followed.
Well, you know, Tim Houston he's a puppet, so whoever's...
We'll find out. That's the whole point.
Well, we're going to find out with that record production, Tony, and therein lies the problem. And that's why right now the government is in full panic mode about what we're doing. Imagine, Tony, pulling the lead, the lead defense lawyer for the province with Stuart McKelvey, pulling him from that position in the middle of this critical case. And then appointing them to be a Supreme Court justice down in Sydney, replacing the Supreme Court justice that was the first person handling our judicial review.
Hey, it's because they won already, Peter.
Yeah, so...
They won already. They don't need to do anything anymore. They don't need a lawyer anymore.
Yes. So here's what they're saying. So the reality of it is, Tony, is it's a cascading events of totalitarianism stacked on top of an unaccountable government. Well, when we're finished with them here, Tony, the court's going to make them accountable here in Nova Scotia. It's not going to end well for the Conservative Party and Tim Houston. It's going to end very badly. And the only people that will be the happiest will be the people in Nova Scotia who are finally going to have the power given back to them to put somebody in government who by contract is going to have to do what they promised to do, right? What they said they were going to do. And if they don't do it in a timely manner, they're going to be fired, Tony. And when they're fired, I mean, you can even put it in a contract that said you have to give any money back to the people that helped get you elected. You have to stay out of politics for the next 5 years. You can put a ton of conditions in there. We're not looking for lifetime politicians. We're looking for, communities around the province from one end to another are looking for somebody who, somebody that they respect, and his handshake still means something, that'll show up for 4 years, do the job, be a wrecking ball, fix what needs to be fixed, and then go home, and not pull the kind of stunt that Chris D'Entremont just pulled down in the, down on the South Shore.
Well, Peter, here's the thought. I have 2 family members that were in the hospital. I talk to a lot of people, believe it or not. I give out Druther Papers, my podcast, and I talk to several nurses. And guess what? They're not talking probably because they want their job. Yep. Maybe because they're fearful what happens if they do. Those needles are killing and injuring people. So Tim Houston and all these people that are involved should be punished for this.
Well, Tony, that can happen.
And this is the same thing what you guys are fighting for, Peter and Paul. If we're all dead, guess what? We got nothing.
Well, this is it. The people of Nova Scotia have to step up. we're all
Exactly.
grown up. The Americans did this 250 years ago. The Americans figured out that they wanted to rule themselves.
Like I
And
know
Nova
police.
Scotians don't. No, Nova Scotians haven't figured it out yet. They're quite happy being lorded over. And there's a number of us that aren't quite happy with that. We don't like the arrangement. So we're lawfully going through this process to change it. And the way I see it is get some independence in, get some original thinking, and start doing things the way we want rather than having BlackRock tell Tim Houston what to put on the party platform so that it doesn't really matter who votes for what so long as he's the dictator of the cabinet and gets to decide on every move.
Does it
We
go
want to live
beyond
in a democracy.
Does it go beyond BlackRock? I mean,
Oh yeah.
don't you find since COVID you question everything? Everything.
Well, that's a
I
good thing,
had a
though. I question everything. When I was a little
I was
kid,
quite happy before. I was half asleep, before COVID. I was. I didn't care. I was a nerd. I was in the basement. I didn't do anything.
Well, I was
And
asleep too, and it felt like what would it be like to sit and watch a hockey game, or sit around with family? Like a lot of people about anything. Like I had a nurse on my last show. They're killing friggin' babies in the hospitals, killing them with that clot shot. And I know darn well the nurses know about it. They're doing it with people. How in your heart can you sit back and watch it? If they all got together, and this is what I like to see. I like to see the police. And I know a few have talked to me. They see it. They see what's going on. The police need to get together, walk in Timmy Houston's office and say, Tim Houston, and start cleaning house. You're under arrest for this, this, and that. And whoever broke the law, and I mean, I'm talking their bosses, arrest them.
how about
Because
this, Tony? How about we do this? How about we get a bunch of independents running the government and changing the relationship of the police with the people? Because right now the police aren't working for the people of Nova Scotia.
look, I'm for anything, Paul. This needs
Yeah,
to
I'm
end.
just saying. Well, I'm just recognizing that. I think your sentiments are fine, but there's no legal mechanism to make sure that that happens.
Well, speaking
Law
of legal
enforcement don't
mechanism,
listen, don't
Paul,
listen to the public.
speaking of legal mechanism, none of this, Canada's a corporation. I learned all about it with Gordon Berry and different guests. Like everything's a fraud, right down to our driver's license. So a lot of people are fighting within the system, but the system is all fraudulent. It's all fraudulent. And when you're awake and you've seen all this stuff, and I've seen it with guests, and when I talk about it, anybody watch and say that Tony Lohnes, he's a nutcase. Canada's not like that. Like,
I don't think you're a nutcase, Tony.
oh, thank you, Paul.
Tony.
I think you're echoing the sentiments of a significant number of people of Nova Scotia. So the whole reason why we came on this program with you, right, is to elicit our interests and what we want to see happen, and to make it a provocative argument that may be, suit the appetites of Nova Scotians. I say the people of Nova Scotia are generally passive. They'll do what they're told, and the lobster ponds are mostly owned by the Chinese Communist Party now. How did that happen?
Paul, even though you don't use Facebook, and I know Peter sees some of my posts, people are waking up, don't you think, Peter? Because I seen a lot of.
A lot more than this time last year, Tony.
Yes,
That's for sure.
I find they're really awakening up, Paul. So that's why we're sticking with Facebook. I try to get them on Telegram and X and stuff like this, but I really, I feel the awakening. I really like what you guys are doing, but I'm also, you don't throw all your marbles in the box. If Gordon Berry's party that he's running in federally, if he'll sign your contract, that if they don't do as they say, you could be fired. Listen, I would vote for an independent. I would consider a party because we need different mechanisms. We can't have all just one thing. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, Tony, I think it'd be great to have a bunch of good, solid independents. And we've met with the gentleman that you just mentioned there, Mr. Barry. Was it Gordon Barry? Gordon, yeah.
Gordon Barry.
And Gordon's got some great ideas. So imagine if he was official opposition and there was enough independents in a minority government to control them all. At least you'd have somebody with some common sense that you'd be able to deal with. So this is not a one solution fixes all. But right now we're threatening billions and billions and billions of dollars in budgets and control. And that's why right now the province of Nova Scotia has pulled out all stops to try to stop us. And they've grossly underestimated who they're dealing with. Grossly. And it's
dealing with the people of Nova Scotia. At the end of the day, our constituency are people between the ages of 18 and 30. Those are the people whom I speak with. I go to church every Sunday, and I talk to a bunch of young people that go to church. And they know what I'm up to, and they're just fascinated by it because they can't buy their homes. They can't buy a house. They can't afford food, for crying out loud. These are engineers. These are, professionals.
They can't afford to have kids, Tony.
And can't have kids. They're, it's awful.
But they're flooding the country with immigrants, and I'm glad you brought that up because I'm not a racist, okay? I know there's a lot of Indian people that's moved in our area, and a lot of them are nice, don't get me wrong, but they're over flooding them with them. But what I can't understand where the Chinese have taken over our government, I get that. Well, why aren't we seeing more Chinese people in the population? I guess it's a question.
No,
I think are there?
Here's what I think what's going on. Chinese, they have a 100-year plan, right? So they don't have to occupy provided that they have influence. And right now the influence is through money. In terms of control, it's a whole lot easier to control a population if you bring a desperate population in to replace the population that exists. And I had this conversation with an engineer who was working at Home Depot in my own area, and his wife. They were both working there. I was talking to them and saying, well, what's the deal? Why are you here? And they said, we're leaving. And they said, well, why? Why are you leaving? Isn't Canada great? And they said, no, it's corrupt. And I said, well, what do you mean? He came from Bangladesh. And they said, well, in Bangladesh, it's in your face. Everybody knows it's corrupt. But here they hide it. So they say it's all good, but it's actually rather disturbingly corrupted. So to come here was of no benefit to them whatsoever. So after their 2-year stint was done, they're gone. I don't see them anymore. They've left. So what they've done is they've found a population that's easy to manipulate. And this is why the big financial institutions like BlackRock that move a lot of money around, that have interests all over the world, they don't care where the windmills are built, if they're built in Denmark or China or Australia or whatever. They're involved, they're multinational, they're involved at those levels. So they really don't care about the population of Nova Scotia. We're actually in the way of their plan, to be honest. I'm definitely in their way. The people of Nova Scotia are in their way. So they have to bring in replacements that will cooperate with their grand plan. And the way that these new Canadians, let's call them, are more suited to this grand plan is that they don't have any awareness or interest in confronting the people that are actually doing these large-scale planetary manipulations, financial manipulations, and macroeconomic and production, and but China's a big part of it. They're making everything over there, and they just want China to be the manufacturing center of the planet. Okay, so the immigrants is a bad way of framing it because it stinks of racism, but it's really not that. They're just
invaders.
Bodies. They're bodies from anywhere that will replace the stodgy old obstacles called us that are in the way of what the big plan is.
I'm a Scot, and I'll not put up with it any longer, Tony.
You got to get rid of you Scots.
Should we call them invaders? I watched it.
No. They're hired. They're hired by these big companies. They're
Come here.
moving people all over the earth right now. They're just moving them everywhere. And the whole purpose of moving these people around is to dilute the influence of entrenched cultures. They don't want the culture that's here in Nova Scotia have any influence on anything that's going on relative to the management of Nova Scotia, the corporation, the thing that runs everything, that builds the roads and that just makes the big decisions about tax and privacy and all these other gripes that you have. You're in the way, Tony. I'm in the way. Peter,
Me? I'm
damn
innocent.
it, you're in the way. Get
thought
out of
I
the
was-
way.
I thought I was innocent. Who listens to
Holy moly,
Tony
Tony.
Lohnes?
We're already past an hour.
Yeah, I know. Okay,
And that
I
went
know.
quick, Tony.
Pete, I'm going to let Peter and Paul have the last words. Peter wants to talk about his book and
Well, not so much about it, Tony, other than to say that, look, if you haven't got a Christmas gift for somebody that's waking up, if you want to wake somebody up, get them a copy of that book. Plus, it's funny as heck. It even talks about back when I was a bootlegger, when I first got out of university and was working at the pulp mill. But that book is for the common person here in Nova Scotia. It's an easy read. You can order it on Amazon. People ask me for private copies, and I'd much rather they get it on Amazon. That way they can give it a review, Tony, and it's a lot cheaper for them that way. And I would really appreciate anybody that picks up a copy. And if I run into you, look, I'm more than happy to sign it. I remember I remember somebody saying, yeah, they want your signature. And I was actually surprised. I was shocked the first time asked me for somebody to sign something. But anyways, look, it's a great read. And it'll wake you up. And there's a bunch of data in there, Tony, that for the people that are questioning things. And ultimately, in the last 2 chapters, I talk about exactly what we're doing with the Independent Nova Scotia initiative. So there's a game plan in there on how to give government back to me, you, and everybody sitting at home tonight watching the news, complaining about getting screwed over by a corrupt government, who are right now shaking in their boots based on what we're able to accomplish.
And Paul, what final words do you have to say, sir?
I say pay attention to the progress. They can go to my blog. I keep that one updated day to day. It's westhaver.ca, and I got a little blog there. And what's happening in the court with Independent Nova Scotia. And a lot's going to be happening over the next couple of months. It's all important stuff. And take away this. When you have the opportunity for the next election, which may be sooner than you think, find somebody, find somebody, when you have an opportunity for the next election, find somebody in your community who you love and convince that person to run for office, to represent your interests in the legislature, and bind them to a performance contract that they're willing to sign, and then support them and get them elected. And have that person enter the Nova Scotia legislature as an independent candidate, because that's going to happen. Get ready. This is a long-term plan. You don't see me sweating it because I have a long view of how to improve things for Nova Scotia, and I think this is the best way.
Well, here's a suggestion. I give out other papers, okay? And
Mentioned it.
if somebody made me up a bunch of copies of Independent Nova Scotia, for example, I would put one in the paper and give it out. I just don't have all the funds for flyers and stuff, but if anybody is interested, they can let me know and get me some copies. Anyway, Peter MacIsaac, Paul Westhaver, you know what, you guys, it's always a pleasure. And I love having you guys on my show. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tony, and I'll keep sharing any of the data that I get from you, buddy. Thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All the best. Bye for now.
Gather round Halifax, listen and hear. I'm Strain, the author of Sorrow and Fear. 15 are gone, but their ghosts remain. With Halifax blood, my hands are stained. Forever my friend. I broke every rule, gave him exemption, made you the fool. Friends in hard places, his doctor decried. Strang used his muscle while old people died. 15 dead souls from Strang's campaign of fear, lied to us all from a Halifax pier. Promised us hope but brought only sorrow. Scars from your words will linger tomorrow for your hearts. Said 12-year-olds could consent to the jab, and more any risks no child could grab. Safe and effective, I swore to the crowd, but no virus was found. The silence was loud, 3 reports proved the virus was gone before it came. Still I pushed needles deep in the arms of babies all the same. 15 dead souls from Strang's campaign of fear, lied to us all from a Halifax pier. Promised us hope but brought only sorrow. Scars from your words will linger tomorrow. Children were lab rats, forced to comply. People lost jobs while the truth passed us by. Vaccine makers cashed in on our fear. Strang's empty words left 15 dead. A title for cover, credentials for show. Still some folks praise him, how can that be so? Strang sells his snake oil, claims it will save. You trust the lie while you dig your own grave. From Strang to Big Pharma, the trick's just the same. False cures for money, no hint of shame. Quacks exploit us, they're hoaxing our hope. Just like Strang, then we struggle to cope. 15 dead souls from Strang's campaign of fear, lied to us all from a Halifax pier. Promised us hope but brought only sorrow. Scars from your words will linger tomorrow. A kidney patient, desperate in pain, a quack offers cures for his own selfish gain. 99 bucks or 3 payments, he'll say, on sale with a coupon you can buy any day. No ethics, no truth, like Strang you deplore. Fraud or just sleaze, it's a crime to the core. Rise up Halifax, let's call out the lies. Demand truth and justice beneath godly skies. No Strang, no witchcraft, no potion deceit. For our families, children and kin, let's fight to be free. With ethics and care, let true healers stand for a future that's honest in this sacred land. Sorrow, scars from your words will linger tomorrow. Children were lab rats, forced to comply. People lost jobs while the truth passed us by. Vaccine makers cashed in on our fear. Strang's empty words left 15 dead. A title for cover, credentials for show. Still some folks praise him, how can that be so? Strang sells his snake oil, claims it will save. You trust the lie while you dig your own grave. From Strang to Big Pharma, the trick's just the same. False cures for money, no hint of shame. Quacks exploit us, they're hoaxing our hope. Just like Strang, then we struggle to cope. 15 dead souls from Strang's campaign of fear, lied to us all from a Halifax pier. Promised us hope but brought only sorrow. Scars from your words will linger tomorrow. A kidney patient, desperate in pain, a quack offers cures for his own selfish gain. 99 bucks or 3 payments he'll say, on sale with a coupon you can buy any day. No ethics, no truth, I'd strang you deplore. Fraud or just sleaze, it's a crime to the core. Rise up Halifax, let's call out the lies. Demand truth and justice beneath godly skies. No strang, no witchcraft, no potion deceit. For our families, children and kin, let's fight to be free. With ethics and care, let true healers stand for a future that's honest in this sacred land. Dead souls from Strength's campaign of fear, lied to us all from a Halifax peer. Promised us hope but brought only sorrow. Scars from your words will linger tomorrow. A kidney patient, desperate in pain, a quack offers cures for his own selfish gain. 99 bucks or 3 payments he'll say, on sale with a coupon you can buy any day. No ethics, no truth, I'd strang you deplore. Fraud or just sleaze, it's a crime to the core. Rise up Halifax, let's call out the lies. Demand truth and justice beneath godly skies. No strang, no witchcraft, no potion deceit. For our families, children and kin, let's fight to be free. With ethics and care, let true healers stand for a future that's honest in this sacred land. $9 or 3 payments he'll say, on sale with a coupon you can buy any day. No ethics, no truth, I'd strang you deplore. Fraud or just sleaze, it's a crime to the core. Rise up Halifax, let's call out the lies. Demand truth and justice beneath godly skies. No strang, no witchcraft, no potion deceit. For our families, children and kin, let's fight to be free. With ethics and care, let true healers stand for a future that's honest in this sacred land. Call out the lies, demand truth and justice beneath godly skies. No strang, no witchcraft, no potion deceit. For our families, children and kin, let's fight to be free. With ethics and care, let true healers stand for a future that's honest in this sacred land. Children and kin, let's fight to be free. With ethics and care, let true healers stand for a future that's honest in this sacred land.